So families, so this is the interview, uh, interview from WBLS 107.5 radio interview for Grandmaster Jay. So, okay, guys, go ahead and let us listen, our brothers, and let us listen what Grandmaster Jay is going to say. Okay, guys, here we go.
Grandmaster Jay brought that up, and he talked about the timing of him being arrested. So without further ado, let me first introduce Joe Dupree Anderson. I reached out to Joe because he had invited and interviewed Grandmaster Jay on his show. Joe Dupree Anderson is the general manager of 100 Black, the Black station based in New Orleans and Lafayette, Louisiana. And I've been down to Louisiana, and where our own Lenny Green was doing the show down there at the station that Joe Dupree Anderson was working at. Good morning, Joe. Welcome again back to Open Line.
Hey. Good morning, my brother. Once again, so blessed to be with you on the Open Lines. And to all your listeners, all I say is peace and blessings this morning. Let's get into some real conversation.
There you go. And this brother here, he's definitely known. Grandmaster Jay, who is the leader of the NFAC, the No Effing Around Coalition. Of course, you know what effing means. And they came on the ground, and they are following the laws just like any white militia out there. But without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Grandmaster Jay, because Grandmaster Jay was arrested, as I said, at the tail end of this week, and he is charged with federal and state charges. That's correct, Grandmaster Jay?
First of all, you are correct, but I'll go ahead and let you finish your explanation before I speak.
Okay. And Grandmaster Jay, I'm going to let you speak, and you can start wherever you would like to start. If you want to start in a sense of why you put this coalition together, or you can start in a sense of the arrest that had taken place. You have the mic, my brother. You dropped out. Hold on.
This is Verone Thomas. I'm online also.
Okay, Verone. Okay.
Good morning to everyone that tuned in, and to all of the folks around the world who did get the notice at the last minute that this was going to happen. I want you all to know that I love all of you. Thank you for your support and the pressure you put on the system to let them know that the individual that they had apprehended was just not someone that was going to go quietly, and that you all would let this happen. So I have to start by saying that I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for the thousands of phone calls that came down to both facilities where they did not want to keep me any longer than they had to. I wanted to first start off with that. I bid everybody a grand rising, and I also would like to say that it's ironic, as was pointed out earlier, that the day that this federal task force came to my place to apprehend me and to serve the warrant, that it was almost identical to what happened with Fred Hampton. It was at the same time. It was the same tactics. The only difference was they too approached a lot more cautiously. Well, I can't get into those details. All that'll come out. But at the end of the day, I wanted to point out that they're sending a message. And the message was not so much just, this trumped up charge that they've come up with 3 months after the fact. We'll talk about that later too. But it's the fact that it was the timing. It was right after I received the global leadership. It was the fact that it was right after, we had just gotten back. But the point I'm making is the timing of it just seemed so ironic that they were sending a message not just to us in America, but around the world. And we all talk about history repeating itself. No, we don't want to repeat history. So I bid everybody good morning. I am not allowed to be on social media. But a radio interview is definitely something that I can do. So when the good folks reached out to me, I said, of course, I'd be more than willing to sit down and dialogue with you, but at the same time, give some reassurance to all of those folks out there who don't know what's going on, who probably haven't really kept up with the NFAC, who haven't kept up with all of the episodes that have happened throughout the summer into the fall, and who probably have no idea why the U.S. government would respond in the way that it has at both the state and at the federal level. At this particular juncture, if you're not familiar with the NFAC, we are the largest black militia, all black militia. We're not a hate group. We never were. We're not a racist hate group. We are not we're not opposed or threaten anybody, anything of that nature. We were a black militia put together to protect the black community, put together to educate our own people about owning firearms responsibly, and to also teach the art and practice the art of self-policing for our own people so we could take care of ourselves when it appears that when other people do it, we tend to end up dead. The NFAC, of course, has been ignored by mainstream media to a certain degree unless something negative happens. None of the successes do they report. But we're not surprised at that. What I am surprised at is the fact that there are those folks out there that are acting like they just heard about this for the first time. And having your head in the sand in this third episode of the pro-black movement is not wise, because this is a different type of individual that we're dealing with in this era we live in, and they know that they're dealing with a different type of individual in this particular era, and they're prepared to deal with us. But a lot of you all are not prepared to deal with that. So I wanted to open by saying that. A lot of folks have pointed out the irony and what's going on. I don't know if you want me to get into detail about our past with the NFAC. I'm not sure how much your listeners are aware. We were the first on the ground for Ahmaud Arbery. We were on the ground for in Louisville, Kentucky, twice, and then, of course, down in Lafayette. All of these in support of blacks who were either murdered or investigations that appeared to be stalled surrounding the murders of black people, most notably Breonna Taylor in the Kentucky space. And this is what I want to focus on. There are some who feel that what has happened to me is political payback for us bringing the light to the Breonna Taylor situation, which is what our goal was. It was not to destroy or to hurt anyone. The NFAC has always operated within the confines of the law so that this very thing wouldn't happen. And it appears that they found a loophole around that by coming up with these trumped-up charges. Trumped-up charges or not, I still have to deal with them. I am currently in a house arrest situation. I've had several rights removed from me that some folks say would infringe on my First Amendment rights, but they say they were conditions of my release. I am not out of the woods. This is not over. This is just beginning. I will say this also. I need the support of everyone. If you consider yourself to be a member of this community, then you should be doing more than just sitting on the side right now. It's amazing to me that we get in the streets and we protest about people after they are killed, and we lament and we fight. But when people are alive, those same individuals, we sit on the sidelines and we wait for something to happen, as if we're waiting for a martyr or sacrifice. What's happened here is not just a slap in the face to me and my organization, but a slap in the face to the pro-black movement, a slap in the face to those who can see the unfairness in the judicial system. A young man went up to Wisconsin, murdered 2 people, same thing, federal charges, blah, 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 $2 million, he's out, and we don't hear anything about it. Same thing happens with the black man, and all of a sudden it's front page news, and everyone is sitting back talking about, ooh, I don't know. This is not the time for, ooh, I don't know. This is the time for black folks to say, now is our time to demonstrate some type of unified response to what has happened. I'll stop right there and see if there's somewhere else you want to take the conversation. Otherwise, I will be talking for the rest of the day.
I would like you to go into a little bit, if you can, again, where you can't go, we understand, about these charges and what happened Thursday.
A couple of things. Like I said, this is, I don't want to jeopardize anything at this point.
Yes, please don't.
That's just public information. You can look this up yourself. It was interesting. At the federal level, they're alleging that I broke a USC code for assaulting, intimidating, impeding. There were some other things that I would think you'd have to be in a person's presence to do. These individuals who apparently weren't recognized I can hear everything in the car.
Yeah, that was Vernon. I think that was Vernon.
Are we good to go?
Yeah, Vernon. Vernon, you might have to mute, please.
Okay, let me see.
Please mute.
That better?
No, you have to mute. Please mute.
Oh, okay. I'm already on mute. I don't have my speaker on, so.
All right. All right. Continue, Grandmaster Jay.
There's a charge that that's what I did by shining a flashlight up to a building top to see who was up there looking at us, and then moving on. But apparently they say I broke this law back in September when we went down for the second march into Louisville at the Derby, which was interesting. But at the end of the day, then the state came back and, interestingly enough, gave me the same charge that they gave to the officer that fired into the Breonna Taylor residence. But they said that he, threatened the neighbors when the bullets went into other homes. So I have that charge also. They took those charges, they multiplied them times 5. For each, they alleged there were 5 officers who were up there, and so they said there should be 5 counts. So there are state charges, which are wanton endangerment, and then of course the U.S. federal charge that they're saying is, are you threatened, you assaulted, or you intimidated, or something of this particular statute that I did to these police officers knowingly, and that's what the charge is. Now, because this is at the federal level, and I can speak openly here again, it was 2-part cooperation between the federal and the state to try to make this happen, because I don't live in the state of Kentucky. So in order to enact their jurisdiction, they had to get me back to the state of Kentucky. So the feds came and, of course, enacted their warrants. They executed a warrant and then delivered me to the state of Kentucky, and then the state of Kentucky did what they had to do. So those are the charges. A lot of people, even those folks who are lawyers and prosecutors, have said that this is BS, that these are trumped up charges, that this is very weak. But what it does is, in effect, give them what they actually want, to silence me. It was really not about coming after me. If I was a threat, they had to find a way to silence me, specifically by forbidding me to speak anymore online, forbidding me to travel and actually participate in any of the functions of my militia. Basically to sit home, shut up, and sit down, and so forth. So I understand that's what the mission is, but at the end of the day, I now have to work through the system. So that's what happened. So I'm going to go to the other side. Once I was apprehended by the FBI, U.S. Marshal and Special Task Force that they now have, that was created by your current president to deal with these types of situations, as they called it. Once I was in their custody and then taken to this facility, I think it became quite apparent that Black America, to some degree, was not going to just sit by. And as I said before, the response was overwhelming. And of course, I too was already in communication with lawyers and so forth, because I was totally blindsided by this. I could not imagine what they were talking about. I find it interesting that they came on December to get me for something that they said happened in September, when I went back to Louisville on October the 5th and actually I attended the police chief's inauguration, if you want to call it that, and I even spoke at her inauguration, got a standing ovation. So I'm thinking, if I had done these things, then why didn't you apprehend me then in a room full of police officers? What was the mystery then? What was the big deal? And most importantly, if these law enforcement officials perceived all of this, and I was standing right there in front of the police metro hall, why didn't they just arrest me then? It raises a lot of questions, and the timing of itself is suspect. But at the end of the day, I explained to you what I think the overall goal is.
Gotcha. I want to open this up. Joe, I'm going to come to you in a minute. I want to open this up to my team. I'm going to start with you.
Let me add one last thing.
Yes, sir.
That they have not done this to these white militias.
Right.
At all. And I've seen video where they've gone to the state house, they pointed weapons right at these guys. Nothing. So again, if you're talking about systemic racism in America, if you're talking about a judicial system that is built against us and for them, if you're talking about people who probably don't know the difference between justice and revenge and the difference between vengeance and revenge, then you're letting it play out against you again. And I'm going to end by saying this. If we don't stop repeating history, because history doesn't repeat itself, you're given the opportunity to take the same test many times. You have to do it differently. That's all I have to say about that.
Got it. It's ironic that, you know, TMZ just showed a film of a white male in a car stopped by the police. The police have their guns drawn. This white male has a gun in his seat. It's not concealed, and he threatens the police. This white guy is able to continue a conversation. He gets one of the officers to reholster his gun, and he winds up driving off. It's amazing if that would have been a black man, and we've already seen this, where a black man who had a permit for a concealed weapon shot and killed. It shows the double standard again up here in America. But I want to open this up for my team. Larry, I'm going to start with you because you have been leading up a civil rights organization for years, People's Organization for Progress, also known as POP. And you're up, Brother Larry.
Thank you, Brother Fatim, and welcome to our guests and Grandmaster Jay. I'm so glad you came on today. I saw the article about your situation yesterday, and as soon as I saw it, I sent it to our leader, Fatim Muhammad, and Fatim brought you right on. I have two basic questions. Number one, I absolutely agree with your conclusion that this is a trumped up charge and they're really going after you to silence you, and probably even more importantly, to disrupt and to attempt to stop your movement. I don't believe they'll be successful in this. Years ago, I myself was charged with the illegal possession of weapons, and in fact, I was indicted by a grand jury and put on trial. But we beat that, and I believe that you will beat this charge too if you have good legal representation. But for the benefit of our audience, could you give us some background history on NFAC and why you started NFAC? And then I'm curious, Grandmaster, just a minute ago, you said you were somewhat surprised and blindsided. Given the history of the Black Panther Party, wouldn't you expect to have been under surveillance in a situation like this?
That's a great question, and let me answer it backwards. As a matter of fact, what I said I was surprised about was what the charge was.
Okay.
I wasn't surprised when they showed up. I wasn't surprised when I heard the bullhorn. I wasn't surprised when the drone flew in the house. And I realized they had already broken the door down, and I didn't hear that. I was surprised when they showed me what the charge and the date was, but I wasn't surprised at none of what they did. As a matter of fact, I was cool as a fan, as they say. And you know, it's almost like he's been expecting it. Oh, I have. But what I was thinking was that you would have come with something, you know, that's what's surprising. Like, this is it. This is what you guys put together. Okay. All right. Let's go. Let's roll. Here you go. Let's go. Let me get my hands up. Let me get these cuffs on. Let's go. Let's roll. This is a game. All right. So that's what I was surprised about. But in this particular instance, I am very familiar with the history of COINTELPRO, Operation Black Messiah, and a few other programs that were designed by the U.S. government to handicap or to impede any type of black nationalist movement within the United States. Remember, it was J. Edgar Hoover that said that the next Messiah that they have will give to them. It was J. Edgar Hoover who said that we must prevent the rise of a black charismatic male that could energize or galvanize the black nationalist movement. And so we must make sure that if anyone comes along like that, they are either to be humiliated, disgraced, imprisoned, and if not else, killed. So this is not a new program. I'm very much aware of that. I'm very much aware of how they destroyed the Black Panthers from the inside, and the FCSC and a few other organizations. So yes, very much aware of that. and then looking at the history of the NFAC and where it was going or where it is going or where they perceived it to be going, this reaction was not surprising. NFAC, somewhere now about 3 years old, burst onto the American scene, as we call it, coming out of the pandemic, with our appearance in Brunswick, Georgia, after the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. After that, there was some struggle to identify who we was, but once people realized that there was another organization on the street, so to speak, that was standing up from a Second Amendment right perspective and First Amendment right perspective for Black folks, our membership began to grow. By the time we went to Stone Mountain, Georgia, July 4th, to answer a threat that was made, people keep acting like they don't remember when this happened. There are even some folks that are claiming it never happened, but you can go back and do your research for real. You all remember somebody made a threat that on July 4th, they'd start killing Black people at 8 p.m. And of course, our response was to find out where these folks were, pull up there and say, okay, you ready to start killing Black folks? We here, we are at. We pulled up, and of course, we pulled up at the home of the Ku Klux Klan, which was Stone Mountain, because that's where the Klan was born or reborn in America, if you don't know your history. They were known to be there on July 4th. So we pulled up, 1,500 strong. From that moment, a lot of folks became aware of us. Again, our membership grew. And then, of course, we focused on the Breonna Taylor situation and, of course, the lack of transparency. So, again, this is where we had become so large that we couldn't just show up. We had to reach out to municipalities and let them know that a large number of heavily armed Blacks in a militia would be showing up in your city, not to invade but to express and make a political point and to have a conversation with the legislature and the legal structure as to what the problem was, with why is this case taking so long, what is going on. And so we went into Louisville, Kentucky, and the first time about 3,500 strong. And again, that was historic, but nobody talks about that. And then, of course, we came back during the Derby, during September, which is where they alleged that this particular offense happened. Came back. And so we've been steadily growing in number and steadily making our presence felt. And then in the situation down in Louisiana, if you all remember, was twofold. It was not so much that we were outraged by the Pellerin shooting. It was also the fact that we had a sitting U.S. congressman who actually threatened myself and threatened our militia if we exercised our constitutional rights in their city. So we had double reason to visit Lafayette, Louisiana, which we did, which was a very successful event, as you said, very impactful for the people, and also helped to grow our membership even more. The NFAC across the United States has grown remarkably fast and has become something that a lot of people who actually become aware of it tend to try to classify us as somebody else. They want to say, oh, they remind me of the Black Panthers. Oh, they remind me of the Huey Newton Gun Club. Oh, they remind me, go through all these organizations before we tell them, no, we don't. We're a completely new animal. Those other organizations have been standing strong on their own, doing just fine. We don't have to imitate them. We don't have to extend them. They're successful in what they do. We are a new animal. Slide over, make room for us. That's all it is. So a lot of folks who cannot classify us, they tend to resort to the usual. They must be a hate. Southern Poverty Law Center has not classified us as a hate. Oh, they must be terrorists. We're not classified. Nowhere has been classified as a terrorist. Well, maybe maybe there's nothing. We have a zero offense record because we are a law-abiding, citizen populated, legally armed, Black.
Dropped out again.
I think that those folks who are uneducated about
go to Wiki, whatever they want to do, you'll find a very interesting description of us, but for the most part, we are a Black militia, and we're affiliated internationally. We started off just here in the United States, and now we're spread around the globe, Africa, the UK, the Caribbean, South America, and then, of course, there are other militias out there, other Pan-African movements, other resistance movements that have aligned with us. So we have become an international Black militia coalition with different missions in different countries, but also in this country with the mission that I stated before. So that is who we are. And it's funny that this happened. We're in the process of actually solidifying our structures to the point where some of them can become self-independently functioning and so forth. So we've been growing for the last 3 years. That's what the NFAC
Gotcha. Brother Jamie.
Thank you for joining us, Brother Grandmaster Jay, and of course, Brother Dupree. Thank you for coming back. I want our viewers to just juxtapose the Michigans for Liberty, that the militia group that stormed the State House in Lansing. Now, they were menacing and threatening lawmakers, and to my knowledge, there was not one arrest. And you also, brother, referenced Kyle Rittenhouse, who killed 2 people. It is on video, indisputable evidence, and yet he's out on bail. And so we do know there is certainly this dichotomy and this inequity when it comes to Black people exercising their Second Amendment rights legally, and those who illegally are exercising their Second Amendment rights, yet they don't seem to receive the same judgment. You mentioned that you were at the swearing in for Yvette Gentry in Louisville, correct?
Correct.
Have any of the elected officials in any of the areas in which you are on the ground and your organization is on the ground, have they reached out to you to sit and meet with you to understand and discuss your platform and your positions, or have you reached out to them to do that? And if so, has there been any communication, any dialogue, any formal dialogue?
Well, to answer your question, if you're asking if there's been any communication between myself and those individuals since the execution of the case by the U.S. government.
Prior to that. I'm going
to answer that, but I'm going to unpack it first. There has been none. It's interesting that when you read the affidavit, you see some of the names that are mentioned. You're thinking, okay, this guy was talking with the leadership. I wonder if the leadership's talking to him now, and why didn't the leadership talk to him, prior to this? But going back to answer the second part of the question, I had very detailed conversations, roundtable discussions with the leadership in Louisville, the mayor's office, the sheriff's office, all of the activist groups on the ground. I'd had many conversations with them. I did not blindly go into Louisville. There was a lot of conversation before we showed up in Louisville. Us showing up in Louisville was a culmination of those conversations. So that was the end result. The show of force was the end of the conversation, not the beginning. Everyone from the Attorney General all the way down to the folks down in the mayor's office, those folks that are actually on the ground, those folks who are seeking office, I spoke with everyone. So I would think that those conversations, which were not secret, they were public, are the evidence that we never came into this city with an intent of malice toward police officers. The NFAC, as a matter of fact, has never made a statement that our purpose is to attack law enforcement. If we were out to attack law enforcement, then we wouldn't have worked with them or worked along with whatever their particular mayor designated us to work with to make sure we secured the right permits and that we identified the right safety zones and we had the right rules of engagement. All of those have been communicated in conversations before, even though I've seen some things to the contrary, which tells me that some folks are changing their tune. And that tells me that, once again, I'm seeing something happen that doesn't seem to happen in our team. They're unified. And if somebody's not on code, they get them on code. If they need them to change their story, they change their story. They're going to get on code regardless, because they're looking at a team win, not a me win. So, yes, conversations in the past. And it's interesting you to ask that, because I had great conversations with folks. We were never contentious. We were never adversarial in our discussions. As I said before, smiles and sunshines around the table. And then every time that we've executed, we've shook hands and said, great job. We all achieved what we were trying to achieve. There was none of this in this sensation that there was some malice there. And now that we've had this last development, I find it ironic that I have not heard from any of these folks. I will say this, though, and I don't want folks to get the wrong impression here. The individuals that I encountered in this experience that I know work in some of those same departments, there was a level of respect. There was a level of, we know who you are. When I was brought into the Louisville Metro Police Department, there were officers standing there who just wanted to see and give me nods saying, we know who you are, we know what you're all about. You know what I'm saying? Suck it in, go through it, but everybody ain't rocking with this. So I would say that, but leadership, no. Haven't heard from anyone. The conversations I had from the past, last time I talked to anybody
in the Louisville space with regard to the leadership structure was back around the time of September. We've had no further involvement with regards to the NFAC, from a protest or marching standpoint since September. Again, coming back a month later for the police chief swearing in was I was invited to actually do that. I didn't just show up. I was invited, and I actually was invited to speak when I had no intention of speaking. But I gave a good word and shook her hand and said, I wish you the best of luck, make a change, make a difference. As a black woman, so I felt encouraged, and that was it. And I closed the book on our involvement with Louisville, and that's where we were. So you can imagine, no leadership has reached out to me as of this juncture.
Mm-hmm. Bobby Child.
Grandmaster Jay, thanks for coming on today and sharing. Getting a chance to hear you for the very first time, you strike me as someone who is an educator who wants to turn it into action. And it talked about understanding the history of the, J. Edgar Hoover, the Black Panthers, First and Second Amendment. I'm curious to a couple of things. Right? One, how do you, if you can share, how do you protect to make sure you don't have infiltration of your organization to, cut the roots out from it? And secondly, what are the things about the First and Second Amendment that you're finding that Black and brown people are not as aware of that they should be aware of?
Well, first of all, I'm not going to talk too much about the methodology that we use to vet people or to further expose people within our organization that raise questions with regards to who they are or who sent them or what their motives may be. But I will tell you that we have a very aggressive program coming into the NFAC, and once you're in the NFAC, there has been, as many folks have seen, folks dismissed. We don't owe an explanation to the public. We don't try to slander people's names. We just say that they're no longer a member. But internally, there was probably something that came up. We're constantly looking because of what our qualifications are. That's all I'm going to say as far as that. But very much adamant. That's why in the very beginning, when I put the NFAC together, the rules were to keep certain individuals out, to keep the possibility of there being, as we call, a sleeper, or someone who may be a double agent, as people like to say, to prevent them to reduce the possibility of them even getting into the organization. But then even once they're in, a constant analysis of their behavior, of their statements, of their associations. We do all of that. To answer the other piece, which is going to be a little more detailed, with regards to the First Amendment and the Second Amendment, it's not so much what we don't know. Everybody knows the First Amendment. I mean, I don't care what color you are. You're right to say what you want to say when you want to say it. You're right to assemble peacefully and raise a grievance and so forth. Everybody knows that. I think that what we're finding out today in the first half is that people of color, I don't really get behind the term people of color. I'm going to say this. If you say people of color to me, I'm going to say people without color. Everybody else is the people without color. They get offended. So I'm going to say black people, because that is a frame of mind. It is also our Kemetic roots name. It is not something that was made up here in this country, opposed to what they want you to believe. Do your research. Read the book, The Destruction of Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams, and do a deeper dive into why I call us all black. But when it comes to black people, with regards to the law, how the law is applied is the issue. I don't think a lot of our folks are now starting to realize that they apply that First Amendment permission, as I call it, selectively. Look at what's happening in social media, which I hope I'm not on right now, because that's one of my conditions. And this is a radio show, not a internet broadcast. I mean, not a social media broadcast. But you're finding censorship. Censorship is rampant now across all of those platforms, and folks are actually getting irritated that they're finding out things are being removed, things are being blocked, things are being, people are not getting alerts. These things are happening behind the scenes, and they're technically violating the First Amendment right in a very subtle way. They don't want you to get out certain things. They're screening what goes out there. They say they're doing it in the name of. Well, First Amendment means that there is no in the name of. You say what you want to say, okay? Second Amendment right is where we have our problem. You see, we've been socialized in this country to associate weapons and black people with violence and crime, when the truth of the matter is the Second Amendment does not discriminate, and your right to bear arms has nothing to do with criminality. But when you want to keep a certain group of people in a position where you can always dominate, you want to keep a group of people in a position position where you can always determine their final outcome, then you have to continue to repeat what Queen Elizabeth did back in the 1800s when she gave guns to the Arabs to invade Africa, and Africans ran up against something they had never encountered before, using spears and knives. Now here come bullets. So as bullets make the change in the story, then we have to make sure that any group that we want to keep in a lower position, second level citizen position, we must prevent them from getting their hands on guns. You've been socialized to be afraid of guns. You've been socialized that when somebody shows up with a gun, you don't know what's going on. The first thing you do is you call who? The master. So he can come down and find out why you got a weapon. At the end of the day, we then get into the fact that now that you've been socialized to believe that, you have a hard time realizing that the Second Amendment applies to you and everyone else with certain conditions. If you meet those conditions, as everyone in the NFAC must, then you can bear those arms. What you're not aware of, and what we're finding out from a lot of our folks, is there is no extra requirement for us. They didn't have to do anything special. When people say, well, why do black people get to carry guns like that? Well, why does it matter if they're black? How about why do people get to carry guns like that? Because the Constitution says so. Every time I've spoken about this, I keep pointing to the fact that you act like we're a gang or we're a bunch of marauding criminals who just rode into town. No, we're all legally authorized, legally authorized to own weapons. We're all legal citizens. None of us are, any of those things. The things they're trying to turn me into. If you all haven't caught on, they're trying to do to you. Do to me what they've done to a lot of you, and that is, remember what the 13th Amendment says: let no man be a slave, lest he be a criminal. Okay. Also, anyone who has certain things on their criminal record, now the criminal cannot possess firearms. So they've systematically disarmed you using the law, and now we're finding out that as more and more black folks are arming themselves, because black folks are the ones buying all the guns now. Notice there's a weapon shortage all of a sudden. Notice there's an ammo shortage all of a sudden. As soon as we begin to partake, this is what we're learning. As soon as we try to drink from the same lake that's right in front of us that they're drinking from, they're like, whoa, hold on, slow down. No, you can't do that. That's what we're finding out. And some folks, this is a wake-up call for them. They found out just this year alone, trying to purchase a firearm just so they can legally protect themselves. They run into all kinds of roadblocks, but they're looking at people across the aisle get the treatment, so to speak. So I think that what we're finding out, First Amendment, yes, censorship does exist, but also, finally, that there is a marriage between the two. You see, the Second Amendment was put in place so that it could back up the First Amendment. Okay, I came to say what I gotta say, and I'm legally armed in case anybody has such a negative response to what I'm saying that you feel the need that you want to aggress us. I am now in a position per the Constitution to defend myself. A lot of folks don't realize that when the NFAC came on the scene, we were not trying to lead the way in that space. We were trying to imitate the blueprint for everyone. That if you're going to continue to protest in the environment that we're in today, you need to arm yourselves legally. You don't need security. You are security legally. And then you'll see a different response. Everywhere the NFAC has gone, everywhere that we have worked, participated, if you notice, the law enforcement they act completely different because of the fact that we're just as armed as they are, and that is your constitutional right. It doesn't mean that you get to go out and enact revenge. It doesn't give you the right to go out and commit crime. It gives you the right to legally defend yourself and to legally arm yourself. You have the right under the First Amendment. Our people, in the times that we're living in right now, are finding out that just exercising your First Amendment right hasn't changed a thing. So they've gotten used to that. But when you turn it up another notch and you arm yourself per the Constitution, and I think that's the thing that we all should have learned from what happened in the 60s, was that those brothers and sisters, they armed themselves too against a society that was not comfortable with seeing black people with guns overwatching the very people who had guns that were killing their people. Back then, there appeared to be this all-out, let's go for it mentality that a lot of those young people that they had. And if you all don't know your history, research some of those folks. They were young. They were not folks like ourselves. The average age of members in the NFAC, we're not young folks. Most of us are in our 40s, 50s, 60s, and up. We just recently allowed younger folks to come in because they wanted to be a part of the organization. They have an extra level of screening for maturity. and an understanding of constitutional law as it applies to what we're doing. You can't come in gung-ho and you don't understand the First and the Second Amendment rights, and then we have to educate you, that's fine. But I think that the challenge we're looking at today is that there are a lot of folks who still don't understand that when you see a black person with a weapon legally, there's nothing wrong at all. They're exercising their constitutional rights the same way that you can.
Brother Petit, I just want to quickly point this out to Brother Jay, and he can expound on that to our viewers. Brother Jay is expertly trained. You are a U.S. military veteran, correct?
That is correct.
And many of your members are. So I just want to make that point. I don't want people to think that this is out there without understanding and having the training of firearms.
Exactly.
The misunderstandings that have been perpetuated by the media, as I said, they don't talk about what we do. They like to take what we do and twist it around. Some of the misperceptions out there, one of my favorite ones is, oh, they shoot themselves. Really? A safety check where we're trying to find out who can be a member and someone who wasn't a member fainted and dropped the weapon. Doesn't sound like we were shooting ourselves. It sounds like we were trying to find out who was safe and who wasn't, and before we could get to someone, they dropped the weapon. Other than that, there have been no other incidents in our organization. When we were in Lafayette, if you all remember, there was a situation that happened at the park. We weren't there yet. We were 10 blocks away. We too heard the noise, had no idea what went on. However, the media was quick to say they shot themselves again, only to find out it was a local guy who brought a weapon that he shouldn't have had, and something happened with that, this, and the third. The bottom line is a lot of us are ex-military of all branches, not one particular branch, but a lot of us are not. So there's always this synergy where folks who are ex-military, who have had weapons training, train the others, and you've probably seen some of the video clips that we started posting in our training cycle, where you see us out there actually doing this. We've allowed the press from foreign countries to actually accompany us to some of our range qualifications and trainings and so forth, so that they could see the level of training that we've done. We got a wire here, these guys. But at the end of the day, training internally does happen. So it is not as if we're just a marauding bunch of guys that got together and said we're militia. That's not what happened. As a matter of fact, you are not allowed to do that under our current rules. No one in a certain city can just get together with their boys and friends and girls and gals and get together and say, hey, we're chapter 2. It doesn't work that way. There are certain screening procedures, and we do examine right off the bat. Are you ex-military? Are you proficient with the weapon? What weapon do you have? When was the last time you fired the weapon? When we come down to qualify you, you're going to have to demonstrate to us that you understand the weapon. And if we don't see that you have that proficiency, whether you're ex-military or not, you can't participate in anything else that we do until such a time that you can qualify with us. So please, let's lose that distinction that we don't know what we're doing, because if the federal government really thought that we didn't know what we were doing, if the federal government thought that we were a bunch of untrained idiots, then they wouldn't have come to me the way they did. And we wouldn't have existed up to this point.
Gotcha. Let me bring Joe Dupree in here. And Joe, as we get ready to wrap this up, and the reason why I reached out to you, because you had interviewed Grandmaster Jay in the past and was helping me make this connection. Grandmaster Jay, along with other organizations, has been there for the people. You know, sacrificed different organizations, like he said. He's not there to imitate other organizations. He has his own organization. But there's a lot of organizations, like my brother here, Larry Ham, is on the ground up here on the East Coast. But a lot of people sacrifice, and they do it because they believe in the cause, and they do it from the spirit of the heart. But now, at times, folks need the people. Folks need the people. And when I say folks need the people have run into issues and they need that support. I want to bring you into that conversation, Joe, on that level, in the sense of Grandmaster Jay needs support. He's going to need support out here, and the folks need to rise to that level of lending support. Your thoughts, Joe?
Very much so, Brother Fatim. I like to bring up 3 words: accountability, responsibility, and economics. First of all, anybody who's had the honor or the privilege of running or even speaking to or meeting Grandmaster Jay, he gives freely information, he gives freely knowledge. Many folks who have had issues with police brutality, situations of wrongness, when the NFAC showed up to support and undergird you, Many of them didn't even call for the NFAC. The NFAC actually reached out for them and said, how can we help you? How can we help resolve this injustice and let you know that there are people who look like you, as Grandmaster Jay say, black folks standing together. Our biggest problem, I think, as a people is that unlike Kyle Rittenhouse, we sit around and go, oh, I knew he was something that he wasn't. So incorrect. We should undergird this brother because this brother has freely came with his people to places like Lafayette, Louisiana. He has came to Stone Mountain, Georgia. He has came to Louisville, Kentucky. And it is times like this that we have to understand that economics is key, because this man is fighting a serious legal battle that, just like Kyle Rittenhouse, they say the evangelical community helped raise over $2 million and help him in his situation of his struggles legally. We've got to stand behind this brother. Here's why we have to stand behind this brother, because we have to show that justice isn't just us. We have to show folks and make them understand that the same laws that reign on Pennsylvania Avenue are the same laws and the same level of justice that should be given out in the low income and under deprived areas. We've got to wake up, family, and we got to wake up now. And we got to put a demand that if people like General Flynn can get pardoned for what he did, then we need to get together and undergird brothers who are out there fighting for us just to be American citizens. Grandmaster Jay served in the military. He's a veteran. I'm a veteran. So it's cool for me to catch a bullet for this country, but it ain't cool for me to stand up and say, you got to treat me like you treat everybody else. We got to wake up. And listen, everybody out there, find a way, if it's $1, $2, whatever you can, just like they backed up Kyle Rittenhouse, we got to back up Grandmaster Jay. Brother Fatim, that's about all I got to say on that.
And let me just add, there was many white lawmakers, including Donald Trump, who publicly supported Kyle Rittenhouse. So let's see how many black lawmakers stand up to support Grandmaster Jay.
Right.
Hey, Brother Fatim, this is Verone Thomas. I'd like to add to this conversation.
Verone, state who you are, my brother.
Verone, my name is Verone Thomas. I'm a political activist from Lake Charles, Louisiana. And I was also Grandmaster Jay's running mate for president in 2016. And there's so many reasons that they arrested Jay, and the pointing a rifle, or that is like so far from what we know to be happening in this situation. But let me say this: the attempt to free the black mind has been a crime since colonial time. This is nothing new. Okay, different strokes from different folks. I like to bring up the Bundys, Clyde Bundys and his sons. In 2016, they took over a federal building in Oregon for 40 days. 40 days, threatening federal agents. They broke in the building. They broke in safes. They destroyed the place. Now, these people only got like probation at the most from this. All of them got a slap on the wrist. The actual Bundys who was in charge of the operation actually got dismissed. So you can see there's different strokes for different folks. And basically this has been happening since black people have been on this land. 1640. Let's take a history lesson real quick. I'm gonna go real quick with this. In 1640, you had a guy named John Punch. Okay, if you want to know what's going on with Jay today, you look at the very first case. The very first case was John Punch. He was an indentured servant with two white guys, and they all three ran away. When they brought him back the next day to stand trial, okay, the two white guys only got sentenced to finish their indentured servitude. The black guy, John Punch, was sentenced to life. That started the relationship with blacks and the judicial system at that time. See, it's not just about the First Amendment and Second Amendment. We're looking at 13th Amendment violations happening here, okay? Because the police were slave patrol. That's how they started, as a slave patrol. Okay, so anytime
black people get to a point where we're freeing ourselves mentally. We're not talking about chattel slavery. We was freed from chattel slavery in 1865. We're talking about the mental slavery. We're talking about mass incarceration. We're talking about how Louisiana has the biggest incarceration rate in the whole world. We're talking about slavery. And when a brother comes along, okay, and frees people's mind and get people thinking about what needs to happen to really free us, oh, they don't like that. You see what I'm saying? So that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with trying to liberate our people. We're dealing with trying to be our own sovereign nation. You know, the Indians did it. You know, they got some crazy plots, some crazy sovereign nations already in the country that they accommodate. But anytime blacks try to do what the Indians did, okay, oh, now we causing ruckus. We causing havoc. Now, out of 3 months, you knew this well, for 3 months they didn't do nothing to Jay. Okay, so for them to pick him up 3 months later, and for this stupid charge to come up, we know it's trumped up charges. So basically, we need the people, man. We need the people to understand. Hey, it's not just about Jay. Jay not the only one on trial. Our whole race is on trial right now. They can shut Jay up. They can shut all of us up. So we have to keep pushing, and we gotta stop depending on the government to do the work for us. Okay, it was like when Obama was in office. Okay, they was basically saying, okay, well he didn't do nothing for us, but when he got in office, black people sat back and didn't do anything. We thought, oh, we're gonna let Obama handle it, and then 8 years later, we're like, okay, well he didn't do nothing for us. That's what they saying. Well, even though I believe Obama did a lot for us, but okay, we did not go through the door that he opened. Now everybody just voted for Biden and Harris, and now Biden and Harris, and they're like, here's something to get. We gotta watch them too. Of course. As black people. Yeah, we voted Trump out and we voted for them, but we gotta watch them too. And when people start like asking questions around election time, oh, what about reparations? They don't ask that during the administration for the 4 years. They only ask during election time, not even knowing there's certain ways to ask for reparations that we're not doing it. Right. Jay has laid that foundation out for us so we can know what the international laws are, so we can understand what self-determination is. Those type of things is what's important, and those type of things they're trying to silence Jay on. So it's a matter of silencing the brother right now. Like you said, it ain't about no damn gun charge. Excuse my French, but it's about silencing us as a people. So, like I said, people out there, man, please go out and support Jay, the NFAC, and our whole movement, and realize, hey, man, this is for you. This is for us. This is for us, the people. Don't let them silence us.
Thank you, Brother Verone, and for the work that you done and still doing out there. I just want to say this, and I'm gonna let Grandmaster Jay have his last word on this segment here. You know, we talk about racism, we talk about Breonna, we talked about other issues that you talk about Lafayette, Louisiana, where the brother was shot numerous times down there and killed by the police. We continue to catch hell by law enforcement at times, and we're not indicting all law enforcement, and you know, and we make that statement. It's about the bad law enforcement. We're talking about racist folks, but I've also seen Grandmaster Jay speak out against people that look like us, black folks that do harm to us. I believe there was a shooting somewhere. I'm not sure if the NFAC was there, but I believe, and Grandmaster Jay, you can correct me because I don't want to put out any false information. You got information who did the shooting, and you put it out, and that individual was a black person. So at the end of the day, he's standing for the righteousness for us as a people, black people. Can't be scared to say that, black people. At the end of the day. But he's not just targeting just racism. He's talking about all isms that is detrimental to us as a people progressing. Grandmaster Jay, I thank you for coming on. I leave you with any last words here, my brother. You still muted.